Step away from that coffin. Security doesn't take orders from you, so move. Sergeant Dean Holloway's voice cracked across the terminal as he shoved Staff Sergeant Elijah Booker back from the flag-draped casket. Holloway ripped the escort papers from Elijah's hand, barely glancing at them before crushing them like they meant nothing. "You expect anyone here to believe you're guarding military remains?" he said loudly, making sure the growing crowd heard every word. Officer Trent Kessler grabbed Elijah's arm and forced it behind his back, as if he were restraining a suspect instead of a soldier standing beside the dead. Elijah didn't react, jaw tight, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on the coffin he refused to leave. Because the officers, humiliating him in front of the entire terminal, had no idea they had just laid hands on the one man legally entrusted to bring that fallen soldier home. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The afternoon sun slanted through the terminal windows, casting long shadows across Gate 12. Staff Sergeant Elijah Booker stood motionless beside the flag-draped coffin, his white gloves pristine against the dark blue of his dress uniform. His broad shoulders remained squared, his posture perfect, the same way he'd carried himself through 28 years of service. Passengers moved past in their usual hurry, then slowed as they noticed the coffin. A respectful hush settled over this section of the terminal. Some stopped to bow their heads. Others placed hands over their hearts. Elijah acknowledged their gestures with slight nods, maintaining his solemn vigil over Private First Class Noah Mercer's final journey home. The peace shattered when two airport police officers approached, their footsteps sharp against the tile floor. The taller one, Sergeant Dean Holloway, led with his chest puffed out. His younger partner, Officer Trent Kessler, gripped his belt with obvious nervousness. "Step away from the container, sir," Holloway barked, loud enough to make nearby passengers jump. Elijah kept his voice steady and low. "Good afternoon, officers. I'm Staff Sergeant Booker, official casualty escort for Private First Class Mercer." "I said step away," Holloway repeated, his hand hovering near his hip. "We've had reports of a suspicious individual lingering near an unmarked container." The word suspicious hung in the air. Passengers began pulling out phones, sensing the wrongness of the moment. An elderly woman in a red sweater pressed her hand to her mouth in dismay. "This is a military transport, officers." Elijah reached slowly into his breast pocket. "I have my orders and credentials right here." Kessler shifted his weight, glancing at the growing crowd. "Why are you hovering around it? What's really in there?" The disrespect in the question made Elijah's jaw tighten, but his voice remained controlled. "I am escorting a fallen soldier home to his family. These are my orders." He held out the paperwork with a white-gloved hand. Holloway barely glanced at the documents. "Anyone could fake these. Why are you armed?" "I am not armed, Sergeant Holloway. This is a Class A dress uniform for casualty escort duty." "Spread your legs. Hands on the coffin." Holloway stepped closer, invading Elijah's space. "Sir, I will not place my hands on Private Mercer's casket. That would be disrespectful to the fallen." Elijah's calm refusal drew murmurs from the watching crowd. A businesswoman had her phone held high, recording. A young man in a college sweatshirt shook his head in visible disgust at the officer's behavior. The elderly woman in red had tears in her eyes. "You don't give orders here," Holloway snapped. "Kessler, call for backup. This subject is being uncooperative." Elijah stood straighter, if that was possible. "Officers, I have been transporting Private Mercer for 19 hours. I have not left his side. These orders are authentic, and I am following sacred military protocol for escorting our fallen home." Kessler spoke into his radio, while Holloway circled Elijah like a predator. "Sacred protocol? Is that what you call loitering beside a suspicious package? For all we know, you grabbed that uniform from a surplus store." The terminal had gone completely silent, except for the airport announcements echoing in the distance. Phones recorded from every angle now. A young girl tugged her mother's sleeve and whispered, "Why are they being mean to the soldier?" Elijah felt the weight of those watching eyes, the shame of being treated like a criminal beside the very coffin he was charged to protect. But he thought of Noah's mother waiting in Ohio, of the sacred duty he'd sworn to fulfill. His voice came out steady and clear. "Sergeant Holloway, I am a 28-year veteran of the United States Army. I am escorting Private First Class Noah Mercer, age 24, back to his family. Every second you delay us is a second longer his mother has to wait to lay her son to rest." A teenager in the crowd called out, "Leave him alone!" Others joined in with muttered agreements. Holloway's face reddened. "Back up, all of you. This is a security matter." He turned back to Elijah. "Last warning. Step away from the coffin now." Elijah's hands remained at his sides, his bearing perfect. "I cannot and will not abandon my post or my duty to Private Mercer." "Oh, you will," Holloway growled. "That's an order." Holloway's boots scraped against the terminal floor as he stepped closer to Elijah. "Move. Now." "Sir, I cannot leave Private Mercer unattended." Elijah's voice remained steady, though his jaw tightened. "Military protocol requires the escort to maintain direct supervision of the fallen at all times during transport." "I don't care about your protocol." Holloway's hand settled on his radio. "This is airport security protocol now." More phones emerged from the growing crowd. A flight attendant pressed against the wall, her hand covering her mouth. Near the gate desk, two businessmen in suits stopped their conversation to watch. "The soldier in this casket gave his life for this country," Elijah said. "He deserves to be treated with respect and dignity during his final journey home." Kessler shifted nervously, glancing between Holloway and the recording phones. "Sarge, maybe we should—" "Shut it," Holloway snapped. He jabbed a finger toward Elijah's chest. "You don't make the rules here. Your attitude is becoming a problem." "My attitude?" Elijah's eyes narrowed slightly. "I have been nothing but professional and cooperative. I showed you my credentials. I explained my duty. The only problem here is your refusal to recognize my authority as a casualty escort." A woman in business attire spoke up from the crowd. "He's just doing his job. Leave him alone." "Stay back!" Holloway barked at the onlookers. "This is a security situation." "The only security situation," Elijah said carefully, "is that you are preventing me from completing my mission to escort Private Mercer home to his mother." Holloway's face flushed red. "Kessler, remove him from the casket." "Yes, sir." Kessler grabbed Elijah's arm, yanking him sideways. The sudden movement caused the trolley to shift. The flag-draped coffin slid several inches with a horrible scraping sound. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Someone shouted, "No!" A child started crying. Elijah's expression transformed from controlled calm to barely contained fury. He pulled his arm free and stepped between Kessler and the casket, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You will not put your hands on me or jostle that soldier again." "Are you threatening an officer?" Holloway's hand moved to his weapon. "I am stating a fact," Elijah replied. "That young man died serving his country. I will not allow you to disrespect his remains." "Oh, now you're allowing things?" Holloway sneered. "Getting pretty bold for someone who can't even prove he belongs here." An airline employee stepped forward. "Officers, I can verify—" "Stay out of this!" Holloway shouted without taking his eyes off Elijah. "This man is becoming unstable. Kessler, call for backup." Elijah stood impossibly straighter, his shoulders square. "The only instability here is your judgment, Sergeant Holloway. I have shown you my military ID, my escort orders, and my transport authorization. Yet you continue to treat me like a threat. Because you're acting like one, Holloway said. Refusing commands, making threats. I have made no threats, Elijah cut in. I have stated military protocol and insisted on basic dignity for a fallen soldier. Your assumptions about me say more about you than they do about me. The terminal had gone deathly quiet except for the sound of phones recording. The crowd had grown larger, with airport staff and delayed passengers gathering at the edges of the confrontation. Last chance, Holloway growled. Step away from the casket, or we'll remove you and detain you for interference with security operations. I will not abandon my post. Elijah's voice carried clearly through the terminal. Private Mercer's mother is waiting for her son. She trusted me to bring him home with honor. I swore an oath. Your oath means nothing here. My oath means everything. Elijah's words cut like steel. That oath is why I'm still standing here, maintaining my bearing, while you threaten and disrespect both me and this fallen soldier. Kessler's radio crackled. Backup is 2 minutes out, Sarge. Good. Holloway smiled coldly. We'll see how much attitude you have in holding. A sharp voice rang out from behind the crowd. What the hell is going on here? The sea of onlookers parted as a woman in a dark blue blazer pushed through. Her airport operations badge identified her as Tanya Ruiz, and her bearing screamed military background. She took in the scene, the shifted coffin, Holloway's aggressive stance, Elijah's rigid posture, the crowd of witnesses with phones raised, and her expression darkened. Who authorized this stop? She demanded. Who gave the order to interfere with a military casualty transport? Tanya Ruiz surveyed the scene, her eyes moving from the shifted coffin to Elijah's ramrod-straight posture, then to Holloway's aggressive stance. Her jaw tightened as understanding dawned across her face. I'm the operations manager for this terminal, she announced, her voice carrying authority earned from years of military service. Someone better explain why you're harassing a casualty escort. Holloway turned, maintaining his authoritative tone. We received a report of suspicious activity. Suspicious? Tanya cut him off, gesturing at Elijah's immaculate dress uniform. A uniformed soldier standing guard over a flag-draped coffin is suspicious to you? She stepped closer to Elijah. Staff Sergeant, may I see your escort orders? Yes, ma'am. Elijah retrieved his documentation packet, handling it with practiced precision. The contrast between his composure and Holloway's earlier aggression was stark. Tanya reviewed the papers thoroughly, nodding as she confirmed each detail. Everything's in order. Private First Class Noah Mercer, being escorted home by Staff Sergeant Elijah Booker. All authorizations are current and complete. She turned to face Holloway, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Sergeant Holloway, you had access to these same documents minutes ago. Did you even bother to read them? Holloway shifted his weight, suddenly less certain. We had to verify. Verify what? Tanya demanded. That a decorated Army sergeant performing sacred escort duty was legitimate? That somehow this soldier standing respectfully beside a fallen service member needed to be grabbed and threatened? The crowd had grown larger. Phones captured every moment as Holloway's authority crumbled under Tanya's withering critique. This stops now, she declared. Both of you, stand down and clear this area immediately. Kessler practically jumped back, eager to escape. Holloway hesitated, his face flushing darker. That's an order, Sergeant, Tanya added icily. Unless you want me calling your supervisor to explain why you're obstructing a military casualty transport? Holloway finally stepped back, his shoulders rigid with wounded pride. The threat in his eyes as he glared at Elijah promised this wasn't over. A smattering of applause broke out among the witnesses. Someone shouted, "Thank you for your service." Another voice called out, "Those cops should be ashamed." Elijah acknowledged none of it. He moved to the coffin with practiced care, checking that the jostling hadn't compromised the flag's precise folds. His gloved hands smoothed each stripe with gentle reverence. "I'm so sorry, Staff Sergeant," Tanya said quietly, stepping closer. "This should never have happened. Let me personally escort you through the remaining transfer process." "Thank you, ma'am," Elijah replied, his voice low. "I just need to complete Private Mercer's journey home. His mother is waiting." Nearby passengers who overheard exchanged pained looks. A young woman wiped tears from her eyes. Someone in the crowd was already showing their phone to others. The video was spreading. Elijah's dignified stance beside the coffin, Holloway's aggression, the terrible moment the casket shifted. "The footage is all over Twitter," a man muttered. "People are furious." "Good," his companion replied. "Everyone needs to see this." Tanya pulled out her radio. "This is Operations Manager Ruiz. I need an honor guard escort team to Gate 12 immediately. Priority casualty transport." She turned back to Elijah. "We'll make this right, Staff Sergeant. Let's get Private Mercer back on schedule with the dignity he deserves." The terminal's atmosphere had transformed. Where there had been tension, now there was solemn respect. Passengers stepped back to create a clear path. Several veterans in civilian clothes stood at attention, offering quiet salutes. Elijah remained focused solely on his duty. He checked the casket's securing straps one final time, ensuring the earlier disturbance hadn't compromised anything. A cargo clerk in a yellow safety vest came running up, waving a tablet. His face was flushed from exertion and obvious distress. "Ma'am, Ms. Ruiz!" He caught his breath. "We have a problem with the transfer." Tanya frowned. "What kind of problem?" "The system just flagged the transport. Someone entered a hold order for these remains." The clerk glanced nervously between them. "It says the casket can't leave the airport until further notice." "That's impossible," Tanya said, taking the tablet. "The paperwork was all cleared. I just verified it myself." "It just came through," the clerk insisted. "Level 1 priority hold. We can't release the remains until it's lifted." Elijah's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on the casket's edge. After everything that had happened, after the public humiliation and disrespect, now an unnamed someone was trying to stop Private Mercer's final journey home with the stroke of a keyboard. The crowd's murmurs grew louder. Phones continued recording. In the distance, Holloway watched with poorly concealed satisfaction, speaking quietly into his radio. Tanya studied the hold order, her expression darkening. This makes no sense. The authorization was complete 20 minutes ago. Nothing should have changed. The clerk shifted uncomfortably. "The hold order came from pretty high up, ma'am. They want the remains transferred to the mortuary annex pending review." The fluorescent lights in the airport operations office hummed overhead as Tanya clicked through screens on her computer. Elijah stood beside her desk, his reflection in the window showing a man struggling to maintain his composed exterior. Outside the office window, 2 airport security officers, not Holloway or Kessler, stood guard near Noah's flag-draped coffin. "This doesn't make any sense," Tanya muttered, tapping her keyboard with growing frustration. "I personally verified the transfer documentation when your flight landed. Everything was cleared." "Can you see who placed the hold?" Elijah asked, his voice tight with controlled tension. Tanya shook her head. "The order came through a restricted administrative channel. Someone with serious clearance pushed this through." She looked up at him. "Staff Sergeant, this kind of hold doesn't just happen randomly. Not with military casualties." Elijah watched the screen as she pulled up the original transfer authorization, timestamp clearly showing approval 2 hours earlier. Then came the hold order, issued exactly 8 minutes after the confrontation at Gate 12. "The timing isn't a coincidence," he said quietly. "No, it's not." Tanya lowered her voice. "Someone saw what happened out there and decided to intervene. But why stop a routine casualty transport? Private Mercer's paperwork was complete." Elijah's hand went to his breast pocket, where he kept Noah's escort documents. Everything had been verified multiple times, at departure, during the flight, upon landing. There had been no issues until Holloway and Kessler created their public spectacle. "I need to call his mother," Elijah said heavily. "She's waiting for her son to come home." Tanya nodded sympathetically and stepped out to give him privacy. Elijah pulled out his phone, dreading the conversation ahead. He had made many difficult calls during his years of service, but explaining why her son's body was being detained felt uniquely cruel. He dialed Lena Mercer's number. She answered on the second ring. "Staff Sergeant Booker? Is everything all right?" Elijah took a slow breath. "Mrs. Mercer, I need to inform you of a delay in Private Mercer's transport. There's been an administrative hold placed on the transfer." He waited for the sob, the breakdown, the flood of grief-stricken questions. Instead, Lena's voice came back sharp and clear. "What kind of hold?" "They haven't provided specifics, ma'am." "I'm trying to get answers. Noah called me 3 nights before he died," Lena cut in, her words precise and deliberate. "He told me something I didn't understand at the time. He said if anything happened to him, I shouldn't let them bury him fast." Elijah's spine stiffened. "Ma'am?" "My son was worried, Sergeant Booker. He wouldn't tell me why, just made me promise to make sure everything was done properly if—" Her voice finally cracked. "If something happened to him?" The office suddenly felt colder. What had seemed like bureaucratic interference now carried darker implications. "Did Private Mercer give you any other information during that call?" Elijah asked carefully. "No. He changed the subject when I pressed him. But I could tell he was scared." Lena's composure returned. "And now they're holding his body for no reason?" "I'm going to find out why, Mrs. Mercer," Elijah promised. "Your son deserves better than this." "Yes, he does. And Sergeant Booker? I'm glad you're the one bringing him home. Noah would have appreciated your dignity today." The call ended, leaving Elijah staring at his reflection in the darkened window. Noah Mercer's warning to his mother played on repeat in his mind. Tanya returned, closing the door behind her. "I've been making calls. Nobody will give me a straight answer about this hold order. But I can tell you one thing. It required authorization well above my level to lock down a military casualty transport this quickly. Someone with authority saw what happened at the gate and moved to stop the transfer," Elijah said. "The question is why? Maybe they're worried about bad publicity after the incident?" Tanya suggested, but her expression showed she didn't believe it. "No," Elijah replied. "This feels like—" His phone buzzed. The caller ID displayed Capt. Roland Voss. Elijah answered, switching to speakerphone so Tanya could hear. "Staff Sergeant Booker speaking, sir." "Sergeant." Voss's voice was cool and precise. "I understand there was an incident during Private Mercer's transfer." "Yes, sir. Airport police. I'm not interested in details, Sergeant. Your only concern right now is to avoid any further optics issues. You will surrender all escort documentation to the duty officer for immediate review. Is that clear?" Tanya's eyes widened at the captain's tone. "Sir," Elijah said carefully, "regulations require me to maintain custody of escort documents until—" "That's an order, Sergeant. This transfer is suspended pending full documentation review. Do not discuss the situation with anyone. Do not make statements. Do not create additional public spectacle. Hand over the documents and wait for further instructions." The line went dead. Elijah and Tanya stared at the phone in silence. He didn't even ask if Private Mercer's remains were being properly attended. Elijah said quietly, "A soldier under his command died, and he's worried about optics." Through the window, they could see Noah's coffin waiting in the gathering darkness, the American flag stark against the black transport container. What had started as a sacred duty, bringing a fallen soldier home, was turning into something else entirely. The fluorescent lights in the operations hallway cast harsh shadows as Elijah held his phone. Captain Voss's words hanging in the air, between him and Tanya. The captain's voice carried that particular tone of authority that expected instant compliance. "Staff Sergeant, let me be absolutely clear," Voss continued, each word measured and precise. "Private Mercer's death was thoroughly investigated. The training accident was unfortunate but straightforward. We don't need additional complications." Elijah's jaw tightened. "Sir, there are irregularities in the transfer authorization. The irregularities are administrative, nothing more." Voss's tone hardened slightly. "Your escort duty is ceremonial, Sergeant. Don't make it something it's not. After that regrettable scene at the gate, the last thing we need is more attention. With respect, sir, my duty is to ensure Private Mercer reaches his family with dignity. Your duty is to follow orders." The Polish slipped for just a moment, revealing steel underneath. "I'm trying to protect you here, Sergeant. Don't turn a simple paperwork review into a career issue." After the call ended, Tanya stepped closer. "He's worried about something bigger than an airport incident." "Yes." Elijah tucked his phone away. "And he's not even trying to hide the pressure." They walked back to where Noah's coffin waited under guard. The flag's red stripes seemed darker in the evening light filtering through terminal windows. Elijah pulled out his escort checklist. "I need to perform the hourly visual verification," he said. "Protocol requires checking the remains and container integrity during any transfer delay." Tanya nodded to the guards, who stepped back respectfully. With practiced movements, Elijah opened the outer transport container and lifted the coffin lid just enough to conduct his inspection. The familiar weight of duty settled over him as he looked down at Noah Mercer's dress uniform. Then he saw it. Near Noah's right wrist, partially visible beneath his sleeve, was a pattern of bruising that made Elijah's combat-trained instincts flare. The discoloration wasn't consistent with the equipment accident described in the death report. Those marks looked defensive. He carefully closed the lid, his movements mechanical while his mind raced. Lena's warning about Noah's last call, the suspicious hold appearing right after the airport confrontation, Voss's immediate pressure to surrender documentation, and now injury patterns that contradicted the official story. "Something's wrong," he said quietly to Tanya. "This isn't just about delayed paperwork." She glanced around the hallway before responding. "I can help. The airport has a secure mortuary annex for situations requiring temporary storage, climate-controlled, constant security, everything by the book. I can arrange space there while you fight this hold order. You're already involved more than you should be. I'm involved exactly as much as I choose to be." Tanya's expression hardened. "I spent 12 years in uniform. I know what it means to bring someone's child home. And I know what it looks like when people in authority try to bury something." Elijah nodded, grateful for her clarity. He pulled out his phone again and dialed Lena Mercer's number. She answered immediately. "Mrs. Mercer," he said, "I need you to know that I'm staying with Noah tonight. The hold order is still in effect, but I've arranged secure storage here at the airport. I will not let him out of my sight." "You found something, didn't you?" Her voice was steady. "Yes, ma'am. And I'm going to find out more. I promise you, your son won't disappear into paperwork and excuses. Whatever happened to him, we're going to uncover the truth. Thank you, Sergeant Booker." She paused. "Noah would have trusted you. I can hear it in your voice. You're a man who understands duty isn't just about following orders." After ending the call, Elijah turned to Tanya. "This could cost both of us." "Probably," she agreed. "But some things matter more than careers." They supervised the careful transfer of Noah's coffin to the mortuary annex. The space was clean and cool, with proper lighting and security cameras. Elijah watched every movement, ensuring the flag remained perfectly draped, the container properly secured. The evening staff tried to assure him they could handle overnight monitoring, but Elijah refused to leave. He positioned himself near the coffin, parade rest stance, his bearing making it clear he wouldn't be moved. "I can bring you coffee," Tanya offered. "Maybe some dinner?" Elijah shook his head. "I'm fine here." She studied him for a moment. "You know, most casualty escorts would have just filed protests through channels, let the system work it out. Most casualty escorts didn't watch this soldier's mother fight back tears while remembering his warning call." Elijah straightened his uniform jacket. "Most didn't see unexplained bruises that don't match official reports. And most weren't ordered to stay quiet about it all. What's your next move?" "First, I protect him through the night. Then tomorrow we start asking harder questions." He met her gaze. "Whatever happened to Noah Mercer? Someone's working very hard to keep it hidden. That ends now." The mortuary annex lights hummed softly as evening deepened into night. Elijah remained at his post, standing guard over more than just a flag-draped coffin. He was protecting the chance for truth, for justice, for a mother's right to know what really happened to her son. He had crossed a line, chosen a side. There would be consequences, but watching over the dead with honor meant more than ceremony. It meant ensuring their stories weren't buried with them. The fluorescent lights of the mortuary annex cast a sterile glow across the hallway, where Elijah sat in an uncomfortable metal chair. His dress uniform remained crisp despite the late hour, a testament to decades of discipline. The secure room holding Noah's coffin lay just behind him, its door marked with official clearance signs. Tanya's footsteps echoed as she approached, carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. "It's not great, but it's hot," she said, handing one to Elijah. "Building Services coffee. Probably been sitting since this afternoon." "Thank you." He accepted the cup, more for something to hold than any desire to drink. She leaned against the wall, her airport operations badge catching the harsh light. "I've been checking the incident reports from earlier. It's not good, Sergeant. Holloway's already filed his version of events. Claims you were combative and non-compliant during a routine security check." "Of course he did." Elijah's voice remained level, but his grip tightened on the coffee cup. "They're trying to paint you as the aggressor. Kessler's report backs Holloway completely. Says you refused basic commands and made threatening movements." She shook her head. "They're building a narrative. Witnesses filmed everything. The truth is out there. Truth needs advocates, especially when systems close ranks." Tanya checked her phone. The hold order's still in place. No movement on lifting it. Elijah pulled out his own phone, scrolling to a number he rarely called. His daughter. Maya would be working late at her law office in Chicago. She always did. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. "Dad?" Surprise colored her voice. "It's almost midnight. Is everything okay?" "Maya, I need your help. Professionally." A pause. "What happened?" He explained the situation. The airport confrontation, the suspicious hold, the increasing pressure from above. His measured tone couldn't quite mask the urgency underneath. "This isn't just about procedure anymore," he finished. "Something's wrong here. And you're calling me?" The words carried years of tension. "Usually you just handle everything through proper channels." "Maya, how many school plays and graduations did I hear that about? Proper channels, proper procedures." She took a breath. "Sorry, that wasn't fair." "No, it was fair." Elijah's voice softened. "I made choices. Duty came first too often. But right now, there's a young soldier who deserves truth, and a mother who deserves answers." Another pause, longer this time. "Tell me everything again. Start with the exact timeline." While Elijah recounted details, Tanya quietly excused herself to check security feeds. He described the airport incident, Voss's pressure, the irregularities he'd noticed. Maya asked sharp questions about documentation and witnesses. "This is more than harassment," she said finally. "The coordinated response suggests they're protecting something bigger. I'll book the first flight out. Thank you." "Dad?" Her voice caught slightly. "Be careful. If they're working this hard to control the narrative, they won't stop at paperwork." After ending the call, Elijah pulled out Noah's file again. He'd been reviewing it between required coffin checks, and the gaps were becoming more apparent. Training accident reports usually contained extensive detail: equipment specifications, maintenance records, witness statements. This one felt sanitized, key information missing or reduced to bare minimums. Lena's words echoed in his mind. "If something happens to me, don't let them bury me fast." What had Noah discovered that made him warn his mother? Around midnight, Tanya returned with fresh coffee and a troubled expression. "I found something in the internal communication system. The hold order wasn't automatic. It came through right after Holloway made a call to someone outside airport authority. Within minutes, the transfer was flagged." "They were waiting for an excuse," Elijah said. "The airport incident gave them one." "Exactly. This isn't confusion or bureaucracy. It's coordination." Elijah stood, stretching stiff muscles before performing another visual check on Noah's coffin. The flag remained perfectly positioned, each fold precise. In the quiet of midnight, the sacred duty felt even heavier. The hours crept past. Tanya eventually had to leave, but promised to return before her morning shift. Elijah maintained his vigil, alternating between sitting and standing, reviewing documents and honoring protocol. His military bearing never wavered, even as exhaustion pulled at him. He thought about Noah, barely older than Maya, finding something wrong and choosing to act. About Lena, carrying her son's warning like a terrible weight. About his own daughter, who'd grown up watching him choose duty over family, but was still willing to help when it mattered most. The first hints of dawn were coloring the high windows when footsteps approached again. Elijah looked up to see Maya walking down the hallway, briefcase in hand, wearing a sharp suit despite the early hour. She stopped short at the sight of him, ramrod straight despite his obvious fatigue, positioned protectively near the flag-draped coffin. Her expression softened for just a moment, recognizing the father she'd always known, the one who carried others' burdens with unwavering resolve, even when it cost him dearly. The fluorescent lights in the airport's security administration office buzzed overhead as Elijah sat perfectly straight in an uncomfortable plastic chair. Maya stood behind him, her legal pad already filled with neat observations. The contrast between their treatment and the officer's reception had been clear from the moment they arrived. Holloway and Kessler waited in cushioned chairs, coffee cups from the break room in hand. They'd been greeted with handshakes and casual conversation. Elijah had received curt nods and instructions to wait. "Let's begin with Sergeant Holloway's account," the airport security administrator said, his tone notably warmer toward his own staff. "Please describe yesterday's incident." Holloway leaned forward, radiating practiced authority. "At approximately 1600 hours, we received reports of suspicious activity near Gate 12. An individual was observed lingering beside a sealed container, displaying concerning behavior." "Concerning how?" Maya interrupted, her pen poised. "Refusing to leave the area, acting nervous, making other passengers uncomfortable." Holloway's words carried rehearsed precision. "When we approached to investigate, the subject became immediately confrontational." "The subject," Maya repeated quietly, marking her notes. "He refused basic compliance instructions," Holloway continued, "displayed aggressive body language, responded to routine questions with hostility. Given the sensitive airport environment, We had to establish control of the situation. Kessler nodded eagerly. He kept reaching toward his uniform jacket, sir. Given current security protocols, we had to treat that as a potential threat. Maya's pen pressed harder into her paper. The lies were building systematically, each one designed to justify escalation. She glanced at her father, noting how his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. And when Officer Kessler attempted standard contact compliance, the subject physically resisted, Holloway added. This resistance caused the container to shift. The flag-draped military casket, Maya corrected sharply, containing a fallen U.S. soldier. Let's be precise about what was shifted during your operation. The administrator frowned. Ms. Booker, please allow the officers to complete their statements without interruption. Tanya stood near the door, her arms crossed, watching the performance unfold. Her expression remained neutral, but her fingers drummed slightly against her arm, a tell of contained frustration. When it was Elijah's turn to speak, the difference in his account was striking. Each word came measured and clear, stripped of emotion but heavy with truth. I was performing my duties as casualty escort for Private First Class Noah Mercer, he stated. My orders and credentials were immediately available. The casket was clearly marked with military transport designations. I maintained my position as required by Escort protocol, which states the fallen must never be left unattended. And your response to lawful commands? The administrator pressed. I responded to all instructions with appropriate military courtesy while upholding my sworn duty to protect the dignity of the deceased. Maya wanted to jump in, to point out how they were twisting protocol against him. But she recognized her father's strategy. Let his discipline expose their chaos. Let his calm reveal their prejudice. After the statements concluded, Maya caught up with him in the hallway. Dad, they're building a case against you. Playing by their rules won't help. They'll just keep moving the goalposts. I know. His voice was quiet. But I won't give them real ammunition by losing control. Sometimes control itself becomes a weapon they use against you, she said. They're counting on your silence, your perfect behavior. That's how they'll bury this. Before he could respond, Tanya approached quickly, glancing over her shoulder. I need to show you something. Not here. She led them to her office, closing the door. I can access the complete surveillance footage from yesterday. Multiple angles, unedited. But they've already put in requests to review and restrict it for security purposes. How long do we have? Maya asked. Hours, maybe. Once they lock it down, getting copies will require subpoenas, and by then, Tanya let the implication hang. Elijah's phone buzzed. A message from another casualty assistance officer. His expression shifted as he read. What is it? Maya asked. Noah Mercer filed something at his base before he died. A confidential concern report. Most of it's restricted, but the timestamp shows it was submitted 3 days before his death. What kind of concern? That part's blocked, but it went to the Inspector General's office. That's serious. Means he was reporting something big enough to bypass his chain of command. Maya's legal instincts fired. A soldier files a major complaint, dies days later in a training accident, and suddenly there's coordinated pressure to rush his burial and silence anyone asking questions? And now we know why they panicked when they saw me checking his casket, Elijah said. They needed to establish a reason to delay transport, to check if he left anything behind. Tanya's computer chimed. The surveillance footage will take about an hour to copy. After that, I can't guarantee it'll still be accessible. Do it, Maya said. We'll need proof of their behavior before they can sanitize everything. Elijah checked his watch. Lena Mercer's flight lands soon. She'll want answers about the delay. Then let's go meet her, Maya said, gathering her things. She deserves to know what's really happening to her son. They left the sterile office behind, stepping into late morning sunlight. The truth was emerging piece by piece. Not just about yesterday's humiliation, but about why Noah Mercer died, and who wanted that truth buried with him. The funeral home intake room felt too small. Its beige walls and artificial plants, a poor attempt at comfort. Lena Mercer sat with perfect posture in one of the vinyl chairs, her nurse's scrubs still on from her flight. Her eyes were tired but focused as she looked at Elijah. "I recognize your voice from the phone," she said quietly. "You stayed with him all night." "Yes, ma'am." Elijah remained standing, his dress uniform precise despite the sleepless hours. "I gave my word he wouldn't be alone." Maya sat nearby with her legal pad, watching her father and Lena find their connection through shared loss. The room's fluorescent lights hummed overhead, making everything feel slightly unreal. "Noah called me 3 nights before it happened," Lena said, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "It was late, almost midnight. He sounded different, scared, maybe. Not my confident boy." Elijah moved closer, his presence steady. "What did he tell you?" "He said he'd seen something wrong on base. Something with the vehicles they used for training." Her voice grew firmer. "He said people were cutting corners, falsifying maintenance records. He told me, 'Mom, if something happens to me, don't let them bury me fast.'" Maya's pen moved rapidly across her notepad. "Did he specify what kind of maintenance issues?" "No, but he said soldiers could die if it wasn't fixed." Lena's fingers worried at her wedding ring. "3 days later, they told me he died in a training accident. Claimed a vehicle rollover, but wouldn't let me see detailed reports." Elijah shared a look with Maya before speaking. "Mrs. Mercer, when I checked Noah's body at the airport, I noticed bruising around his wrist that doesn't match a vehicle accident report." "Show me exactly where," Lena said, nurse's training evident in her sharp tone. Elijah indicated the spot on his own wrist. "Here, like someone had grabbed hard enough to leave marks. The official report mentions no close contact injuries. And now there's an unexplained hold on moving his body," Maya added. "Plus, a partially restricted report Noah filed with the Inspector General's office right before his death." Lena absorbed this, her grief channeling into clear purpose. "They're hiding something. My son wasn't careless. He wouldn't have died in a simple training accident." "We can request an independent autopsy," Maya explained. "But we need to act quickly. Once military burial occurs, getting permission to exhume becomes nearly impossible." "Do it," Lena said without hesitation. "I want to know what really happened to my boy." Elijah felt the weight of her trust, the same trust she'd placed in the army when Noah enlisted. "Mrs. Mercer, challenging this could get complicated. They'll try to pressure you to accept their version and move forward with military honors." "I don't want hollow honors," Lena replied. "I want the truth. Noah tried to tell it, and look what happened." She stood up, smaller than Elijah but equally resolute. "You're not just his escort anymore, Sergeant Booker. You're my witness." Maya watched her father's expression shift subtly. She recognized the moment he fully committed himself beyond protocol. This was about justice now, not just duty. "Tell me about him," Elijah said softly. "Help me understand who I'm fighting for." Lena's eyes welled up for the first time. He was quiet, but sure about things, joined up because he believed in serving something bigger than himself. She pulled out her phone, showed them a photo of Noah in his uniform, smiling. "He told me the Army taught him that one person standing up can make a difference." "He was right about that," Maya said. "And he left us evidence. The bruising, the Inspector General report, his warning to you. We can use these to justify delaying burial and requesting independent examination." "The hold they placed on transport might actually help us," Elijah added. "It gives us time to file properly." "But we have to move fast," Maya cautioned. "Once they realize we're building a case, They'll try to rush everything through standard military channels. Lena nodded, her nurse's pragmatism returning. What do you need from me? Written statements about Noah's call. Any texts or emails showing his state of mind before death? And formal authorization to act as your legal representative, Maya listed. You'll have it all within the hour. Lena turned to Elijah. And you? What will this cost you? My career, possibly, he admitted. But I made a promise to bring your son home with honor. Real honor means truth, not just ceremony. The afternoon light slanted through the funeral home's small window, casting long shadows. They spent the next hour documenting everything Lena could remember about Noah's last days. His concerns, his determination, his fear. As they prepared to leave, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Tanya. Found complete surveillance footage. Need to meet after my shift. Urgent. Lena gathered her purse, her movements precise and controlled. I know what they expect, she said. A grieving mother, too broken to ask questions. They don't understand. Love makes you stronger, not weaker. We'll find out what happened, Elijah promised, however long it takes. Time isn't what worries me, Lena replied. It's how far they'll go to keep this buried. Maya's small law office felt cramped with 4 people huddled around her laptop, but no one complained. The conference room's overhead lights cast a harsh glow on their faces as Tanya inserted a thumb drive with trembling fingers. I copied everything before they could touch it, she said. Multiple camera angles, continuous footage, no gaps. Maya opened the first video file. The airport terminal's gate 12 appeared on screen, showing Elijah standing beside Noah's flag-draped coffin. The timestamp matched yesterday afternoon. There, Tanya pointed. Watch how it starts. The footage was crystal clear. Holloway and Kessler approached Elijah with hands already near their weapons. There was no casual questioning, no respectful inquiry. Their body language screamed suspicion from the first step. Lena leaned forward, watching intently. Look at my son's coffin. Look how carefully you're standing guard, Sergeant. The video showed Elijah presenting his papers immediately when asked. His posture remained professional, his responses measured. When Holloway began raising his voice, Elijah stayed calm, explaining his role 3 separate times. Play the next angle, Maya instructed. We need the grab. Tanya switched to a different camera view. This one captured the moment Kessler seized Elijah's arm, causing the coffin to shift. The movement looked even worse on video, a sacred violation caught in high definition. Stop right there, Maya said, freezing the frame. This is everything. We can see Kessler's hand clearly. We can see the coffin move. And most importantly, we can see you never raised your voice or made any aggressive moves. Elijah watched the screen with contained anger. They wrote in their report that I was combative. The footage destroys that claim completely, Maya replied, already typing notes. This shows clear misconduct and false reporting. They had no cause to escalate, no reason to touch you, and no justification for jostling a service member's remains. Tanya pulled up additional angles, showing the gathering crowd, the phones recording, the rising tension. The terminal cameras caught everything, including Holloway's face when he realized people were filming. We need to move fast with this, Maya said. She picked up her office phone and dialed a number. I'm calling Marcus Wheeler. He runs the local Veterans Justice Coalition. He can help us build public pressure. The phone clicked to speaker mode. A deep voice answered, Maya? What's so urgent? She quickly explained the situation. Wheeler's response was immediate and forceful. Send me that footage now, he said. I'll have 30 veterans at a press conference by noon tomorrow. This is exactly the kind of abuse we've been documenting. Law enforcement disrespecting service members, especially members of color. Lena pulled paperwork from her bag, forms Maya had prepared earlier. I'm ready to sign whatever we need. For the autopsy request, The burial delay? Everything. Maya guided her through each document. This requests an independent medical examination. This files for an emergency injunction to prevent hasty burial. This authorizes release of Noah's military records to our team. Lena's signature was steady on every page. When she finished, she looked at the frozen video frame still showing the coffin being jostled. They thought no one would care enough to check. They were wrong. Within hours, Maya's careful orchestration began paying off. The airport authority, faced with irrefutable video evidence, placed both Holloway and Kessler on immediate suspension pending investigation. Local news stations ran the story in their evening broadcasts, showing clips of Elijah standing dignified beside the flag while uniformed officers treated him like a threat. "Look at these comments," Tanya said, scrolling through social media responses. "People are furious. Veterans groups are sharing it nationwide. Nobody's buying the official police statement anymore." The conference room felt energized with possibility. Even Elijah allowed himself to hope as supportive messages poured in from across the country. Military families shared similar stories of disrespect. Civil rights advocates demanded accountability. Fellow soldiers praised his composure under abuse. "This is how we force them into the open," Maya explained. "Once there's enough public attention, they can't just make it disappear." "Noah would be proud," Lena said softly. "He believed in standing up, no matter the cost." Elijah nodded, feeling the weight of the past 24 hours. For the first time since the airport confrontation, it seemed possible that truth might actually prevail. The footage couldn't be denied. The public was engaged. The system's automatic protection of itself had cracked, just slightly. But at 8:57 p.m., his phone buzzed with an official notification. The brief message from Captain Voss was coolly professional. "Report to the Military Liaison Office, 0700 hours tomorrow." No explanations, no context, just an order that couldn't be ignored. "What is it?" Maya asked, seeing his expression change. Elijah handed her the phone. The small victory that had been building all evening suddenly felt fragile. The conference room's harsh lighting seemed colder. "They're pushing back," Maya said, reading Voss's message. "But they can't undo what people have already seen. The truth is out there now." Lena reached across the table and gripped Elijah's hand. Her touch was firm, grounding. "Whatever they try tomorrow, you're not alone anymore." "None of us are." The Military Liaison Office felt sterile and cold at 7 in the morning. Captain Roland Voss sat behind a polished desk, his uniform pristine, his expression professionally neutral. Elijah stood at attention, feeling the weight of decades of service pressing down on his shoulders. "At ease, Staff Sergeant," Voss said, his tone carrying careful authority. "Please, take a seat." Elijah remained standing. Through the office's thin walls, he could hear Maya pacing in the hallway outside, her heels clicking steadily on the tile floor. "I have some concerns about your conduct during this escort assignment," Voss began, opening a fresh manila folder. "There are serious discrepancies that need to be addressed." "Sir, my conduct has followed protocol exactly," Elijah responded. Voss's smile didn't reach his eyes. "That's not what these corrected findings indicate." He slid several papers across the desk. "You allowed unauthorized civilian access to the remains. You disseminated sensitive details about a service member's death. You created a public spectacle that compromised the dignity of the escort mission. Those airport officers compromised dignity when they put hands on a fallen soldier's coffin," Elijah said quietly. "That incident has been grossly misrepresented," Voss replied. "But more importantly, your response violated multiple sections of escort protocol." He tapped the papers with one manicured finger. Section 12.4. Maintaining chain of custody. Section 15.2. Public disclosure limitations. Section 18.7. Conduct requirements. The citations felt like bullets, each one aimed at Elijah's career. Voss continued methodically. This could affect your pension, Staff Sergeant, your service record, your retirement timeline. Is that really how you want to end 28 years of honorable duty? Elijah's phone buzzed in his pocket. Probably Maya texting for an update. He kept his hands at his sides, face composed. Additionally, Voss said, Private Mercer's remains have been transferred under federal authority for immediate processing. The independent examination request has been denied on jurisdictional grounds. His mother has legal rights, Elijah started. His mother's wishes have been noted, Voss cut in smoothly. But military protocol takes precedence in cases involving active duty personnel. I'm sure you understand. Through the window, Elijah watched clouds gathering, promising rain. His phone buzzed again. One more thing, Voss added, his voice dropping slightly. That airport operations manager, Ruiz, she's been making some concerning claims about internal communications. I trust you'll remind her that unauthorized access of secure systems is a serious federal offense. The threat was clear. Elijah thought of Tanya's last text hinting at evidence in Voss's emails. She hadn't responded to messages since then. Do we understand each other, Staff Sergeant? Voss asked. Perfectly, sir, Elijah replied, each word careful and measured. Good. You're dismissed. I expect your complete escort documentation on my desk by end of day. Outside the office, Maya was waiting, phone in hand. What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost. Worse, Elijah said. I've seen how power works. He explained Voss's threats while Maya took rapid notes. They can't just... Maya's phone chimed with a news alert. Her face fell as she read it. Oh, God. Elijah looked over her shoulder at the screen. The headline hit like a physical blow. Fallen soldier laid to rest in private military ceremony. That's impossible, Maya whispered. We filed for an injunction. Lena has rights as next of kin. They can't. They already did. Elijah's voice was hollow. Call Lena. Now. But Lena had already seen the news. Her voice on speakerphone was raw with fury and grief. They buried my boy without telling me. They didn't even let me say goodbye. Rain started falling as they drove to the military cemetery. The fresh grave looked wrong somehow. Too neat, too official, too final. Lena stood between Elijah and Maya, her shoulders shaking. I failed him, Elijah said quietly. I got the body home, but I couldn't protect the truth. The rain grew heavier, drumming against the ceremonial flags that lined the cemetery paths. Maya tried calling Tanya again, but the call went straight to voicemail. They moved fast, Maya said, wiping rain from her face. Buried the body to bury the evidence. Silenced Tanya. Threatened your career. They're eliminating every path to the truth. Lena knelt beside the fresh earth, her hand hovering over it as if she could still reach her son. Noah knew this might happen. That's why he called me. He knew they'd try to make it all disappear. Elijah stood at parade rest, rain soaking through his uniform. He had spent his career believing in the system, following orders, trusting the chain of command. Now that same system had used his own discipline against him, wielding protocol like a weapon to ensure silence. The grave looked so small, so final. Noah's voice was gone. The evidence was buried. Tanya was unreachable. And Elijah's lifetime of service had been transformed into a vulnerability. Every regulation and requirement another way to force his compliance. Maya put her arm around her father's shoulders, feeling him trembling with contained rage and grief. Lena remained kneeling in the mud, her tears mixing with the rain. Above them, the American flag hung limp and heavy on its pole, its colors muted in the gray afternoon light. The motel room felt suffocating. Rain drummed against the window, while Elijah sat in a worn armchair, his dress uniform still damp. Maya paced between the beds, checking her phone every few minutes. Lena hadn't moved from her spot on the edge of the mattress, staring at nothing. The digital clock on the nightstand blinked 10:47 p.m. Empty coffee cups and half-eaten sandwiches littered the small table by the window. None of them had the energy to clean up. "We should try calling Tanya again," Maya said, but her voice lacked conviction. They'd already left dozens of messages. Elijah rubbed his temples. "Her number's disconnected now. They're thorough." "Thorough," Lena repeated, the word bitter in her mouth. "They buried my son without telling me. Like he was nothing. Like I was nothing." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush them. A car passed outside, its headlights sweeping across the room's faded wallpaper. Maya started to speak, but stopped at a sharp knock on the door. They all froze. The knock came again, more urgent this time. Elijah moved to the door, peering through the peephole. His breath caught. "It's Tanya." He opened the door to find her soaked from the rain, clutching a laptop bag to her chest. Her airport security badge was gone, replaced by dark circles under her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, stepping inside. "I couldn't risk calling. They're watching everything." "You disappeared," Maya said. "We thought they fired me this morning. Evidence mishandling. Said if I stayed quiet and left town, they wouldn't press charges." Tanya's laugh was hollow. "But I spent 2 days copying everything I could find first." She pulled out her laptop, hands shaking slightly. "The airport stop wasn't random. After it happened, Captain Voss called our police chief directly. I have the recorded call." They gathered around as she played the audio. Voss's polished voice filled the room. "The remains need to be delayed. There may be unauthorized materials that weren't properly cleared before transport." "Materials?" Lena asked. "Documents," Tanya explained. "Voss was worried something hadn't been removed from Noah's effects before burial. Here," she pulled up emails. "Internal messages showing Voss ordered an urgent search of the casket during the hold period." Maya leaned closer to read. They were looking for papers? Or digital storage? Something Noah hid. Tanya opened more files. The timing matches. Noah dies under questionable circumstances. The body is rushed into transport. But then there's a public incident, and suddenly Voss is desperate to search the remains before they leave the airport. "But they buried him anyway," Lena said. "So they must have found what they were looking for." "No." Elijah stood up straight. "They searched the wrong place." Everyone turned to him. He continued. "They searched the coffin during the hold, but Noah's personal effects case was logged separately because of the transport disruption. It stayed in my custody the whole time." Understanding dawned on Maya's face. The case never went to the mortuary with the body. "Noah was smart," Tanya said softly. "He would have known his belongings would be searched if anything happened. But he also knew about Escort protocol, that personal effects stay with the escort officer." Elijah crossed to the corner where he'd placed the simple black case. It looked ordinary, standard military issue, but his hands trembled slightly as he lifted it. "If Noah hid something," he said, "he knew it would reach his mother. The escort system is designed to ensure personal items make it home." Lena pressed her hands to her mouth. "The phone call. He told me not to let them bury him fast. He was making sure I'd ask questions long enough for this to get home." Maya pulled out her phone. "I'm recording everything we find. We need a clean chain of custody." The room grew very quiet as Elijah placed the case on the bed. The latches seemed unusually loud as he opened them. Inside, everything looked regulation neat. Noah's wallet, dog tags, watch, photos, letters. "Check the lining," Tanya suggested. "That's where I'd hide something." Elijah ran his fingers along the case's edges, probing gently. Near the bottom, he felt an irregularity, a slight gap in the material. Carefully, he worked his fingers into the space. "There's something here," he murmured. Maya filmed as he extracted several folded papers and a small flash drive from behind the lining. Lena made a soft sound, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. "He knew," she whispered. "He knew they might come for him. So he made sure the truth would make it home." Elijah laid the items on the bed, while Maya documented everything. Noah's handwritten note to his mother, a list of names connected to what looked like maintenance records, and the flash drive that might hold the real story of why a young soldier had to die. The clock blinked 11:57 p.m. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. For the first time since the burial, hope felt possible. Fragile and urgent, but real. Maya kept recording as Elijah began carefully examining each item from the case. Every piece might matter. Every scrap might be the key to understanding what Noah had discovered, what he had died trying to expose. The truth wasn't buried, after all. It had been traveling beside them the whole time, waiting to be found. The bedside lamp cast harsh shadows across the motel room as midnight ticked past. Elijah spread the contents of Noah's effects case across the floral bedspread, while Maya held her phone steady, recording. Tanya stood watch by the window, and Lena sat close, her hands clasped tight in her lap. "There's more in this seam," Elijah said, his fingers working carefully along the case's inner edge. He extracted another folded paper, then another. The pile of evidence grew. Documents, photographs, and the small flash drive that seemed to weigh more than its size. Maya maintained a running record. 1:17 a.m., recovering additional documents from hidden compartment in military effects, case ID number 2479B, assigned to Private First Class Noah Mercer. Lena unfolded her son's letter with trembling hands. His neat handwriting filled the page. "Mom, I'm writing this because I can't stay quiet anymore. They're falsifying maintenance records on our armored vehicles, cutting corners, faking inspections, pocketing repair funds. Someone's going to die because of this. I have proof, but when I asked questions, my sergeant told me to shut up. Now I'm being watched. If something happens to me, everything you need is in this case. I'm sorry for putting this on you. I love you. Noah, my boy," Lena whispered. He knew they might hurt him, but he still tried to do right. Tanya plugged the flash drive into her laptop. "There are dozens of files here. Maintenance logs, inspection reports, photos of vehicle damage. Look at these emails ordering mechanics to clear vehicles that failed safety checks." Elijah leaned in, scanning the screen. Those orders came from Captain Voss's office. He was running the scheme. "Wait," Maya said, opening a new folder. "There's an audio file." She clicked play. Noah's voice filled the room, young but steady. "This is Private First Class Noah Mercer, recording on March 15th. I'm making this statement because I don't feel safe anymore. 3 weeks ago, I discovered maintenance fraud in our vehicle pool. Critical repairs aren't being done. Inspection records are being falsified. Money allocated for parts is disappearing. Captain Voss oversees everything. When I raised concerns through proper channels, I was told to forget what I saw. Yesterday, my sergeant said accidents happen to soldiers who don't know their place. I'm following procedure and documenting everything. If retaliation comes, this is why." Lena pressed her hands to her mouth, tears streaming as she heard her son's voice. But her eyes held steel now, not just grief. Tanya opened another file. "Here's the vehicle inspection report from the day Noah died. It's been altered, dates changed, signatures forged. The original version is here," Maya said, finding another document. The transport that crushed Noah had failed 3 safety inspections. Brake system was shot. But Voss ordered it cleared for operation anyway. "That's why they needed the hold order at the airport," Elijah said grimly. They had to search Noah's effects before his mother got them. When the public scene delayed transport, Voss panicked. The pieces locked together with terrible clarity. Noah had discovered systemic fraud that put soldiers at risk. He'd documented everything, hidden the evidence, and tried to report it properly. His superiors had responded with threats, then arranged an accident with a vehicle they knew was dangerous. When that wasn't enough, they'd rushed to bury both the body and the truth. Maya scrolled through more files. There's a money trail, too. Maintenance funds diverted to private accounts. Parts ordered but never installed. Voss's signature all over it. How many other soldiers were at risk? Lena demanded. How many vehicles did they clear that could have killed someone else's child? Dozens, Tanya said, checking records. Maybe hundreds. This went on for years. Elijah stood straight, every inch the staff sergeant, despite his exhaustion. Noah died trying to protect his fellow soldiers. We owe him the same courage. The evidence is solid, Maya said. Financial fraud, falsified records, criminal negligence, conspiracy to cover up a death, obstruction of justice. But we can't trust internal channels now. They've already shown they'll destroy evidence and silence witnesses. So what do we do? Lena asked. Maya's expression hardened. We take it public. All of it. Right now. No more waiting. No more playing by their rules. We hold a press conference first thing in the morning. Release everything at once. The airport footage, Noah's evidence, all of it. Make it too big to bury. They'll fight back, Tanya warned. Try to discredit us. Maybe worse. Let them try, Maya said. The truth is on our side this time, and I know exactly how to force them to face it. Lena squared her shoulders. Noah didn't back down. Neither will we. Elijah nodded slowly. This was no longer just about escorting a fallen soldier home. It was about honoring Noah's final act of courage by finishing what he started. About forcing a system built on lies to finally face the truth. Maya's right, he said. We take it public. All of it. First light tomorrow. The digital clock blinked 1:43 a.m. In a few hours, they would step into the spotlight and detonate everything Voss had tried to hide. The evidence was clear. The truth was secured. Now it just needed to be heard. The morning sun cast long shadows across the federal courthouse plaza as Maya Booker directed people into position. News vans lined the street, their satellite dishes raised like sentinels. Veterans in pressed uniforms formed a solemn line behind the podium, their medals catching the early light. Elijah emerged from a black sedan, his dress uniform immaculate. In his white-gloved hands, he carried Noah's carefully folded burial flag, each precise triangle visible through the clear presentation case. The sight of him, tall, dignified, unwavering, drew every eye in the plaza. Perfect timing, Dad, Maya said, checking her watch. Clerks just accepted our emergency filing. Federal investigators are already reviewing the evidence package. Lena Mercer stood nearby, wearing a blue suit that matched Noah's service photo pinned to her lapel. Her face showed grief, but her spine was steel straight. Those files aren't just paper anymore, she said. They're my son's voice. Tanya Ruiz conferred with federal agents at the courthouse steps, pointing to specific documents. Her official statement about the airport hold order and altered records was being entered into evidence even as television cameras set up their shots. Maya gathered them close, speaking quickly. Here's how this plays out. We release everything simultaneously. The full airport footage, Noah's voice recording, the maintenance fraud documents. No institution can contain it, because it's hitting through multiple channels at once. The truth deserves witnesses, Elijah said quietly. Clergy members in collars and stoles took their places, lending moral gravity to the scene. Combat veterans wearing Purple Hearts stood at parade rest, their presence a silent rebuke to anyone who might dismiss Elijah again. Reporters checked their microphones as Maya distributed press packets containing verified copies of key documents. Each packet included photos of falsified maintenance records, financial trails showing diverted repair funds, and Noah's final written statement about fearing retaliation. "Start with the airport footage," Maya instructed the media. "Show how they treated a grieving mother's son and his escort. Then reveal why they were so desperate to stop us from examining the body." Lena touched the service photo on her lapel. Noah tried to protect other soldiers by reporting dangerous violations. They killed him for it. Then they tried to bury him before anyone could ask questions. A veteran's advocate stepped forward, medals glinting on his jacket. "We're here to ensure Private Mercer's courage is honored, and his warning is finally heard." More supporters arrived. Soldiers who had served with Noah, nurses who worked with Lena, civil rights attorneys backing Maya's filing. The crowd grew, but remained disciplined and focused. This was not a protest. It was a reckoning. Tanya rejoined them, her face tight with purpose. Federal agents are extremely interested in those maintenance records. Hundreds of vehicles cleared for operation despite failed safety inspections. "The money trail is damning." "Captain Voss?" Maya asked. "They're pursuing multiple angles: financial fraud, criminal negligence, conspiracy to cover up a death, obstruction of justice. The hold order proves they tried to intercept evidence after Noah died." Elijah stood perfectly still, the flag steady in his hands. The same hands that had adjusted Noah's casket with careful reverence now held proof of why the young soldier died. His quiet dignity carried more power than any shout could achieve. Clergy members began leading prayers for truth and justice. Veterans saluted as Noah's photo was placed beside the podium. Reporters double-checked satellite feeds to ensure nothing could be blocked or cut off once the evidence went public. Maya reviewed her opening statement one final time. "We start with your treatment at the airport, Dad. Let them see how they humiliated a casualty escort beside a flag-draped coffin. Then we reveal why they were so desperate to rush the burial." "Show them Noah's face first," Lena said. "Let them see my son before they learn how he died." The plaza had become a stage for truth-telling, each element carefully positioned: the grieving mother, the dignified escort, the damning documents, the moral witnesses. Maya had transformed private outrage into public accountability. Tanya's phone buzzed. She read the message and nodded to Maya. "Federal investigators just obtained warrants based on our evidence. They're entering the courthouse now." Through the glass doors, they could see dark-suited agents moving with purpose, warrant folders in hand. The machinery of justice was finally turning the right direction. 2 minutes, Maya said, checking the time. "Once we start, we don't stop until everything is exposed." Elijah adjusted his uniform jacket, the medals and ribbons perfectly aligned. He thought of that first moment at the airport, standing guard beside Noah's casket, while suspicion gathered around him. Now he stood in the same proud posture, but this time surrounded by allies and armed with truth. The plaza fell quiet as Maya stepped toward the podium. News cameras focused. Veterans straightened. Lena lifted her chin. The moment had come to break the wall of silence. Federal agents emerged from the courthouse, warrant folders open, moving with clear purpose toward waiting vehicles. The sight confirmed what Maya had promised. This time, the truth would not be buried. Camera shutters clicked rapidly as Maya approached the podium, her legal papers arranged precisely before her. The morning sun caught the brass buttons on Elijah's uniform as he stood at parade rest, Noah's flag held with reverence against his chest. 3 days ago, Maya began, my father was publicly humiliated while performing sacred duty, escorting a fallen soldier home. Her voice carried across the plaza. Today, we reveal why that confrontation happened and what it exposed. Federal agents moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency. Detective badges glinted as they approached Sergeant Holloway, who stood with forced casualness near his patrol vehicle. Elijah stepped forward, his voice steady and clear. Private First Class Noah Mercer died trying to protect his fellow soldiers. He discovered dangerous maintenance fraud that put lives at risk. He documented everything. And he paid the ultimate price for his integrity. The plaza fell silent as Maya played Noah's recorded warning. His young voice filled the space. If anything happens to me, the evidence is in my personal effects. The maintenance records are fake. Vehicles are being cleared that could get people killed. Lena's shoulders straightened as her son's words rang out. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but her gaze remained fierce and focused. Officer Kessler shifted uneasily as federal agents approached him next. His earlier bravado crumbled under their stern attention. "Wait," he said, raising his hands. "I want to make a statement. The airport stop. It wasn't random. We targeted him because—" He gestured at Elijah. "Sergeant Holloway said a black man by a coffin had to be suspicious. We rewrote the report afterward to justify getting physical." Holloway's face twisted with rage. "Shut your mouth, you spineless—" "Sergeant Dean Holloway," the lead agent cut in. "You're under arrest for filing false reports, unlawful detention, and evidence tampering." The sound of handcuffs clicking shut echoed across the plaza. Tanya stepped forward, holding up her phone. "I have the email chain showing Captain Voss ordered that transport hold immediately after the airport incident." He knew Noah's evidence was still in the personal effects case. More agents emerged from the courthouse, moving purposefully toward the military offices where Captain Voss maintained his command. Through the glass walls, they could see him standing up from his desk, his polished demeanor finally cracking. "Captain Roland Voss," an agent announced, entering his office. "We have a warrant to seize all communications devices and files related to Private Mercer's death." They lifted his phone from the desk as his face went ash-gray. Back at the plaza, Holloway struggled against his restraints as officers led him toward a waiting vehicle. "This is ridiculous," he spat. "It was just a routine security stop." "No." Elijah's voice cut through the chaos, calm but carrying steel. "Your mistake wasn't the stop. Your mistake was forgetting that uniformed or not, dead or living, we were human beings to you. You saw a black man beside a coffin and chose suspicion over respect. You saw a grieving mother and chose deception over truth." Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing as Voss was escorted from the building. His carefully maintained image of authority shattered with each step. "The evidence is overwhelming," Maya announced. "Falsified maintenance records, financial fraud, conspiracy to cover up a death, and a coordinated attempt to bury the truth along with Noah Mercer's body." Lena clutched Noah's photo, her voice strong despite her tears. "My son died because he refused to stay silent about wrongs that could harm others. They thought they could rush his burial and hide their crimes. They didn't count on his escort standing firm." Veterans in the crowd stepped forward, forming an honor line as Holloway and Kessler were placed in separate vehicles. Their presence sent a clear message. This was not just about one incident, but about honor, duty, and truth. Tanya provided a steady stream of updates as more developments unfolded. Federal investigators are seizing records from the base maintenance facility. They've already found vehicles cleared for combat deployment despite failed safety inspections. The morning sun climbed higher as justice rolled forward with unstoppable momentum. Each arrest, each revelation, each piece of evidence built upon the others until the wall of silence crumbled completely. More supporters arrived. Soldiers who had served with Noah, community members who had witnessed the airport confrontation, civil rights advocates who recognized the larger significance. They filled the plaza, standing witness as truth emerged into daylight. By early afternoon, an Army public affairs officer approached the podium, visibly uncomfortable but compelled by circumstances. In light of emerging evidence, the Army announces full restoration of Staff Sergeant Booker's service record. Additionally, Private First Class Mercer's burial will be reopened, with full honors pending completion of formal findings. The crowd's response was immediate. Not cheers, but a deep, satisfied murmur of justice finally served. The system that had tried to bury truth was now forced to face it in full public view. Morning sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of the small Ohio church, casting pools of color across the wooden pews. The sanctuary overflowed with people. Townspeople who had known Noah since childhood, veterans in formal uniform, and clergy members who had watched him grow up in these very halls. Elijah stood at perfect attention beside Noah's flag-draped coffin, positioned now with proper ceremony at the front of the church. His dress uniform gleamed, every medal and ribbon exactly placed, his white gloves pristine. This time, no one questioned his right to stand guard. Lena sat in the front pew, Maya beside her. Both women wore black, but their faces showed resolve rather than defeat. The past days had transformed their grief into something powerful, a testament to love's ability to demand truth and see it delivered. Veterans lined both sides of the center aisle, creating an honor corridor that stretched from altar to door. Many wore combat decorations that spoke of their own sacrifices. They had come to ensure this young soldier received the dignity he deserved. The morning light strengthened as Reverend Marshall stepped to the pulpit. "We gather today," he began, "not just to mourn Noah Mercer, but to honor the courage that defined his final acts on this earth. He saw wrong being done. He could have stayed silent. He chose to speak." Heads nodded throughout the congregation. They had all read the news by now. The maintenance fraud, the falsified records, the attempt to bury evidence along with their boy. Noah's choice to document the truth had cost him everything, but saved others. An Army general rose to speak next, his presence required by the public pressure that had exposed the cover-up. The United States Army officially commends Staff Sergeant Elijah Booker for upholding the highest standards of honor and integrity in his sacred duty as casualty escort. His words carried formal weight. Furthermore, Sergeant Booker will help establish new protocols for escort procedures and anti-bias training, ensuring no family faces what the Mercers endured. Elijah remained stoic, but Maya smiled slightly. Her father would transform this wrong into lasting change, just as she had known he could. The general continued, "Private First Class Noah Mercer is posthumously honored for moral courage in reporting wrongdoing that endangered his fellow soldiers. His actions exemplify the Army values of loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage." Lena's back straightened at these words. They had tried to bury her son in silence. Now his truth would live in official record. Tanya sat several rows back, restored to her airport position with a formal apology and commendation for protecting crucial evidence. Near her were journalists who had helped break the story, and investigators who had followed it to its source. Their presence reminded everyone the truth could not be hidden forever. Through the church windows, they could see police vehicles parked outside the county jail, where Holloway and Kessler awaited trial. The charges were extensive: false reporting, unlawful detention, evidence tampering, conspiracy. Their careers were finished. Captain Voss faced even graver consequences. Federal prosecutors had opened a sweeping investigation into the maintenance fraud and subsequent cover-up attempt. His polished authority had crumbled into public disgrace. The service moved forward with hymns and prayers, but its heart was in the moments of personal remembrance. Fellow soldiers spoke of Noah's quiet integrity, Teachers recalled his determination to serve others. Friends shared stories of his loyalty and humor. Then came time for the flag ceremony. Elijah stepped forward with perfect precision, his movements crisp and dignified. Other honor guard members joined him, their white gloves lifting the flag from Noah's coffin with practiced grace. The congregation stood in silence as they folded the flag with slow, respectful precision. Each turn had meaning. Each crease carried tradition. When only the triangle of stars remained, Elijah received it for the final presentation. He turned to face Lena, who stood straight and proud despite her tears. This was the moment that had been stolen before, the proper transfer of a nation's gratitude to a grieving mother. Every eye in the church watched as Elijah knelt before her. On behalf of the President of the United States Army, and a grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service. His voice carried clearly, full of dignity and genuine respect. Lena received the flag, clutching it close. But unlike the rushed, hidden ceremony they had tried to force upon her, this time she was surrounded by love and witness. Maya placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. The congregation stood in silent support. As the service concluded, people filed out into bright morning sunshine. They formed rows along the path to the cemetery, where Noah would rest properly now, his truth known and honored. Elijah walked past them, straight-backed and resolute. There was no more suspicion in the faces that turned to watch him. No more disrespect or doubt. They saw him clearly now, the man who had refused to let a soldier's sacrifice be hidden, who had brought both body and truth home despite every obstacle. The morning light caught his medals as he moved down the path, glinting off the brass and silver that marked his own years of service. But his greatest honor was in the eyes that followed him, finally seeing past uniform and race to recognize the core of integrity that had never wavered. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please like the video and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.